Hi guys, welcome to another episode. It's a second episode about me doing this handrails. As you can see, the bottom part of the main post is done. I had to cut off a small piece like this, 8 centimeters, just because there's quite limited space and all the manipulations of this post in that very tight area with this extra at the bottom was pretty difficult, so that's why I removed this. So I lost one anchor point, 5 left, but I think it's still good enough. There will be also anchor points on top. The good thing about this is that I can see my welds cut at half, and I can do Adler's test later to see how good or bad it was welded. So plan for today is to first I will use such a square profile for this anchor, let's say hands, wings, that will be attached to the upper part of that post to the wall. The funny thing is that I thought that I have 2 meters of that profile, but the longest piece I have is a 170, but I will need around 190, 199 altogether. So that's why I have this piece and this. They were in my, let's say, scrapyard. So I have to weld them together and extend that piece. But the good thing also is that I can show you the idea behind this. So maybe as you remember, I prepared more flat bars for those plates that I'm not going to use for this place. I used 3 pieces and that's enough. So here I have another piece. I trimmed it a little bit to have 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters is a width of the flat part of that square profile. And of course I will cut it half. Those 2 pieces will be welded together, and then I will drill holes here, and I will be able to attach this like this to the post on the very top part. I will use full width without trimming it to 7 centimeters. On the opposite side it will be screwed to the wall. Okay, so that's about this one. Also, here I have prepared space on that bottom part, and I will weld. Let me show you. So something like this, and here will be my post. The main idea behind this, it can be kind of short handrail because at the bottom there is not much space for it. But the main reason is to have some, let's say, hanger for umbrellas, maybe some dogs stuff. We'll see. But also I will add some extra piece of steel and a hinge here. Yep. So post will be over here. My stairs are going down here, and they turns up here. So that hinge, there's another piece, second part of that hinge. The second part I'm going to weld to that flat bar like this, and that flat bar will be covered on the sides with some pine. Yeah, I think it will be a pine. And that will be a hanger for gloves. So quite a lot of work, quite a lot of welding. But I guess it will be pretty interesting project, and I will show you step by step how I do this and the final result, because I'm very excited to see how it finally works. And there is a deadline before Christmas. So let's get started. Here I have welded my C shape. That's the top of the bottom part of my post, and the idea is to weld it like here. Here you may see there's a piece of flat bar, 4 millimeters thick, so altogether it's like a 6 millimeters, and I'm going to weld another piece of hinge like this. So I hope that nobody will rip off the piece of steel because the leverage will be pretty big, because there is another flat bar with the second piece of my hinge. So you can see the leverage will be pretty big. Maybe I would have to shorten this a bit. We'll see. And here I have 6 small flat bars. These are 1 centimeters, all those 3. Here I have one centimeter, and the others are 6 millimeters. 1 centimeter and 6 millimeters, more or less like this. But what the idea is, the 1 centimeter I'm going to weld like this. So if that would be my post, top part of the upper piece, I would have it like this, and I will use 2 screws at the bottom and on the top to join those 2 pieces together. But because that will be 4 meters length and there is not much space for ladders and do this in a nice, safe way, I decided to prepare such pieces. They are a little bit smaller than this outer one, but no one will ever see them. Let's remove this piece. So the idea is to clamp them together, drill hole across one flat bar, second flat bar, and a square tube. Then weld a nuts on that side and insert it here and tack it to a square tube, so there will be always on the correct position. And then during the mounting procedure, let's say, I would not have to deal with the screws that will be falling down 4 meters deep, and one hand handling piece of steel and another one nut and screw and so on. So plus that should make it not thin, because it's a 4 millimeters thick wall, but it will be a little bit thicker, which is also good. That's why I have 2 small pieces, and the one is exactly the same as those, because those have 15 centimeters. I had 30 centimeters length, So that's why one of them is 1 centimeter, but it also fits nicely here as an insert. So that's how it is now. Okay, so all those flat bars are done, ready to weld and drill holes. But for now, I need to weld those two pieces together like this. Then make a holes in the upper piece of this beam, and then weld those two pieces together. My welding machine is cooling down, so you may hear fans running, but that's how it will look like. Of course, the wooden part is missing here, but here we have that C shape welded to bottom part of the post. Here will be the cloth hanger. There will be an angle of like this, more or less, of a stairs, the upper part. So I will be able to. Now I can't because I have my torso there. But that if that will be in a 90 degrees angle, it will be at the bottom part of stairs. So of course it's not level because it is not very tight. Otherwise it would be pretty difficult to use. But I think it is good enough like this. So now I'm going to prepare the second part with the drill and so on. But before that, I need to tack a little bit those elements, mark them properly, because all the imperfections in drills will be a pain in the ass later. So I'm going to tack them all together and the drill holes. That's the upper part of the main post. Here we have something, let's call it sandwiches. The upper flat bar will be used inside. The bottom one will be used for this anchor wings. I will have 3. 2 will be attached to walls. The third one will be attached to the handrails on the upper floor. I'm going to use drill number 9 millimeters. Even I would like to use 8 millimeter screws. So this 1 millimeter will give me this room for some errors. What's important is to have nice and square angle between drill and flats. Otherwise, this 1 millimeter may not be enough. And here I have marked 4 places for mounting points, and I'm going to use again these Bosch drills. They are pretty good, and usually they do not require pre-drilling, so we will see if my drill press can drill. It will be how many? Like 2 centimeters. So 1 centimeter, this is like 6 millimeters and 4, yeah. So in this case will be like 2 centimeters, and on this one will be like almost an inch. So that's how it is set up, and let's start drilling. First hole drilled, 11 left. I will do this off camera because they will not be more interesting than this one. But as you can see, that drill, even with my low quality drill press, is working. It's amazing with this steel. So let me do all other holes, and we will see each other in a few minutes. All 12 holes drilled, so I can now separate the sandwiches and make them separate bars. What is important is to keep an order and the sets exactly as they are, because the holes, I tried to make them exactly in the same places, but as usual there can be half millimeters left, right, up and down, and having 4 holes, actually even not 4 but 4 times 3, so 12 to match, it will be challenging if I will mess up anything. So now the goal is to cut off the tackles, clean it up, and I have those nuts for this M8 screw. I think it will be enough, especially for 4 of them. And I'm going to use double nuts. So to the very top plate, this will be an insert. On the opposite side, I'm going to weld 1 and another one nut. I measured, and the thickest set I have, which is those 2 and this one, is like a 22 millimeters. I thought it would be thicker, but that's how it is. I have screws with the 35 millimeters thread length. So this 35 millimeters, 2 nuts have around 12 millimeters, 12 and a half, plus those 22, and in the thinner ones are around 20. So I will have the whole screw going through those 2 nuts with a little bit of thread also on the opposite side, which is exactly what I want. I don't want to have 2 long screws because thread on the outer side doesn't help much, but can lead us to another issue, which would be a collision, because the holes are on the same lines to make it look nice. But if the screws will be too long, I would have collisions that way. So that's why the 35 millimeters, 2 nuts, and all this set should be perfect. I have 3 sets already prepared. So now I'm going to weld those nuts to the flat bars, and also together to have them doubled. Having this part done, I will weld the part with nuts inside. To weld nuts to the flat bar, I will use my mag, but to weld this flat bar with nuts inside of this square tube, I will use electrode. Just because cleaning up inside is pretty difficult, and electrode is way longer, so I will have access to lower parts of the square tube. Yeah, and the very next, the very last step will be to weld all those 2 posts together to have 1 4 meters long post. I will also use electrode for the first pass. Usually, when I'm using those electrodes, I'm using this positive polarity, which means that electrode is attached to plus, but because those materials are quite thick and the electrode is quite thin, I will attach this in a negative polarity to have more heat on a material side, not on the electrode side. So that's about the introduction of this part. Let's start welding. And finally, it's time to join those two elements together. I did my best to match them in line. I have some doubts if it's as it should be, but we will see. I hope that my doubts are just doubts. So first, I will do some tags on the corners. I will try to do them quite fast and on the opposite sides to do not add extra bending to this. Then I will release all the clamps. I will check if it's straight, and if it is, then I will continue welding without further comments. Before I will start welding, I had to change layout because this is a pretty long element, and as I mentioned earlier, I don't have a flat floor here. There is a small slope, there is a level, so that's why it is as it is, and that's why camera has to be where it is, so this view may not be perfect, but this is the only one I can provide right now. So let's get started.